Sent. Share screen. Entire screen. Here. Okay. So we're gonna start from 11:22. Yep. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أولئك الذين خسروا أنفسهم وضل عنهم ما كانوا يفترون. It is these who have ruined their souls, and that which they fabricated shall fill them. So this verse is a continuation of the previous topic, where Allah speaks about those people that turn others away from the path of Allah or make it seem crooked to them, right? So Allah states that these people will never be successful in their plans, and moreover, it is these who have ruined their souls, and that which they fabricated shall fail them. So this could be one interpretation of this is that it is a declaration from Allah that yes, these are the people that are actually ruining their souls, and that which they fabricated shall fail them. So typically what happens is that people think that people that always criticize, that they're very logical thinkers or they have open minds, but some people have the habit of criticizing only for criticizing, never to accept, never to find the truth behind it. So Allah states that never, don't think that these are people that are highly enlightened or things like that. People that purposely attack and try to show the prophets of Allah or somebody or a religion or true religion as something that's false and crooked. These are the people that have ruined their souls. They're not enlightened at all, right? And that which they fabricated shall fail them. So whatever these people are doing, whatever efforts that they're making to remove people from the path of Allah, it will not bear any long-term fruit for them. So these people will either be forgotten in this world, or they will suffer all sorts of other indignities, and definitely on the day of judgment, whatever they did in this world will not help them in the next. So one interpretation of this is that it's a declaration on the path of Allah, and also it could be a response to these people as well, because many times what these people say against the prophets of Allah or the true believers is that these people have ruined their souls, but Allah is saying it is not the believers that have ruined their souls. It is actually these individuals who have not accepted the message, and that which they fabricated shall fail them. That is to say, it'll fail them and not the true believers. What the true believers are doing, it will benefit them, but what these individuals are doing, these are the actions that will bear no fruit. So it could be a declaration, or it can also be a very pointed response to these two accusations that many times disbelievers level against believers, the believing community, or the prophets sent by Allah. Verse 23. لا جرم أنهم في الآخرة هم الأخسرون. Undoubtedly, it is they who shall be the greatest losers in the hereafter. So here in the commentary, 5-volume commentary states, the verse purports to say that though disbelievers may do a slight harm to the prophets of God in this life, in the life to come, they alone will suffer. So here, sometimes the disbelievers, they raise, this allegation that, we were able to stop such and such event, or we were able to remove such and such individuals from the prophet or from the believers, or such and such individual became an apostate from this movement due to interacting with us. So all of these things, they take them as great triumphs, right? And Allah states that yes, this is a slight handicap or slight harm to the group of believers when such things happen. But at the end of the day, Allah will cover whatever was lost, and on the day of judgment, these people alone will be the greatest losers, right? So again, it's a response to the accusations that these people make, right? That look at these people, they're losing people left, right, and center, and people come and leave, and no one's listening to them. So Allah states that no, the greatest losers, they try to show the believers as losers, but the greatest losers on the day of judgment will be these people themselves. Verse 24. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وأخبتوا إلى ربهم أولئك أصحاب الجنة هم فيها خالدون. Verily, those who believe and do good works and humble themselves before their Lord, these are the inmates or denizens of heaven, therein shall they abide. The 5-volume commentary, it states, the verse makes it clear that in order to attain to the highest stages of spiritual progress, mere faith and good works are not sufficient. Perfect conviction, complete submission, and full trust in God and sincere love for Him are also essential. Just as a child is happy and satisfied only when it is in the lap of its mother, similarly, he who desires to make real spiritual progress should humble himself before God, place complete trust in Him, and always turn to Him for help. Right? So this is one aspect here. After Allah speaks to the accusations or response to the accusations of those that reject the prophets or those that try to turn people away from the path of Allah, and some of the ways that they try to achieve that by making these very specific accusations, then Allah turns attention towards the group of believers themselves, that those who believe and do good works and humble themselves before their Lord, right? So here Allah also tells us that how should the response of the believers be when they hear these type of accusations, right? So Allah states that those people who believe, number one, the believers, and more after that, they also do good works, right? So they're not just believers in name, they also progress in their faith, they implement their faith. And after that, those people that humble themselves before their Lord. So whenever the believing community hears these type of accusations, or they face those individuals or come across those individuals that try to remove them from the right path, the response should always be analyze their faith, see if they're actually practicing the faith, and then humble themselves before Allah for help. Because it's possible that they raise some sort of accusation or they do something before which the believer may not have a response. Maybe they raise a question that we don't know the answer to, or maybe what they actually say is true, that such and such individual, for example, did this. You know, he's part of your community and he did this, or he was part of your community and now he's doing this, right? Those things are true. Sometimes people come and sometimes they go. So Allah states when these type of things happen and they raise a point, you know, the only thing that the believer should do then is humble themselves before Allah. That, oh Allah, you know best. You know, this is what they're saying is not true. So you yourself bring about a situation in which you open their eyes, or you cover this fault, whatever they're saying about us. If there is a grain of truth to it, help us overcome this. Right?
When you say humble yourself to Allah, you're saying more or less to seek forgiveness.
Yeah, seek forgiveness. It could be because of some weakness on our part. You know, that the other party was found some material, you know, to raise against us, even though 99% of it may be false, right? But maybe that 1% was something that was actually a mistake, right? So whatever these things happen, and they happen from time to time, you know, when people are judging the community, they're looking for opportunities to raise allegations, and sometimes certain mistakes are made or something is not done properly, and they use that as fuel, you know?
Like also
right?
in our job, you know,
yeah.
You give your customer the best service. You've been
Yeah.
there 13 years.
Yeah.
And one day you do one mistake,
yeah.
they hold it against you.
Yeah, and there it is, right? And they're raising a hue and cry, and they're telling everyone about it, and this and that, right? So Allah states, look, when these things happen, right, you should humble yourself before Allah, right? Because you know people are gonna make accusations. They're just looking for the opportunity, right? And nobody's perfect, right? At the end of the day. So we should humble ourselves before Allah. These are the dwellers of heaven, therein shall they abide forever. If someone does this, then they will be in heaven, not only in the hereafter, but also in this life. Then these type of accusations and these type of problems, Allah will very quickly cover the faults or help them get through it, right? Or teach them the answers, right? So it's not only a promise for the hereafter, Ulaika ashabul jannah, that Allah states It's a fact that these are the dwellers of heaven. They will dwell in heaven in this life, right? Through having a spiritual relationship with Allah, and then also in the next life, they will enter into Jannah. Verse 25. مثل الفريقين كالأعمى والأسم والبصير والسميع هل يستويان مثلا أفلا تذكرون. The case of the two parties is like that of the blind and the deaf and the seeing and the hearing. Is the case of the two alike? Will you not then understand? So let's read the commentary.
Yeah.
Yeah? ¿Todo listo? Okay.
Y lo que te dije de la cuestión, eso es que tiene priming y la pintura. Le han dado una pintura por cuando se quiso sentar debajo y la masita. La partecita de allá arriba lo me decía.
Sí. ¿Ya está?
Eso es la pintura.
¿Es pintura?
Sí, sí, puedo poder chequear.
Okay. Okay, está bien. Pues yo pago, Juan. Sí.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Buenas noches. Sí, pues paga. Entonces,
Mm. Okay, where were we?
yeah, I
Verse.
said I'm lost. I don't understand.
Okay. So that's the case of the two parties, right? Blind and the deaf and the seeing and the hearing. So here Allah states, this verse beautifully contrasts faith and disbelief. A believer is here represented as one who is in perfect possession of the faculties of sight and hearing, while the disbeliever is likened to a blind and deaf man. Certainly there is a world of difference between them. The epithets blind and deaf for disbelievers have not been used by way of abuse, but are meant to throw light on the real nature of disbelief. The difference between a spiritually blind man and one who can see is that the former cannot see the spiritual light that comes from God, while the latter can. Similarly, whereas the former gropes, stumbles, and falters on the way to his destination, the latter sees his way clear to it and reaches it directly. Moreover, a blind man cannot distinguish a friend from a foe, and might mistake one for the other, while the seeing man can never make such a mistake. Similar differences exist between those who follow a true religion and those who reject it. The follower of a true religion knows the will of God, which serves as a beacon of light for the spiritual wayfarer. But one who rejects truth loses his spiritual vision, and thus is deprived of the means to know the will of his Creator. Similarly, he who has accepted truth, being a seeker after divine revelation, does not stumble or stagger on the way to his destination, but arrives at it straight away. On the contrary, those who seek to find truth by the unaided help of their own reasoning and faculties may sometimes succeed in finding it, but after a good deal of stumbling and groping in the dark. The difference is well illustrated by the statutory prohibition in the United States of America of alcoholic drink. Islam prohibited drinking outright, with the result that the Muslim world totally abandoned it, at least initially. The non-Muslim world has only now begun to realize its evils after an experiment extending over hundreds of years. Another vital difference between a believer and a disbeliever is that the former takes his stand on the firm rock of some recognized truth about which there exists no dispute in his mind, but the latter does not know where he stands, with the result that in order to refute a truth, he sometimes happens to attack even those principles to which he himself subscribes. This is why the Quran repeatedly reminds its opponents that while attacking Islam, they very often attack their own beliefs and principles. Believers and disbelievers have also been here compared to the hearing and the deaf. The difference between a man who has ears and one who is deaf is that the former, being able to hear what others have to say, benefits by their experience, while the latter can derive no such benefit. He's deaf, so can't hear what others have to say. This constitutes one of the chief differences between Islam and other faiths, and between Muslims and non-Muslims. The teachings of Islam comprise all truths, even those that are found in other religions, and a Muslim is enjoined to get hold of truth wherever he finds it and to make it his own, while a non-Muslim remains contented with his own antiquated and outworn ideas and turns a deaf ear to all others. It is to this peculiarity of Islam that the Holy Prophet has alluded in his famous saying, "A word of wisdom is the lost property of a believer. He gets hold of it wherever he finds it." So in short, the sign of a true religion is that it is catholic, and broad-minded, and embraces in itself all truths, while a false religion is characterized by narrow-mindedness and perversity. Thus, the very thing which is criticized by the opponents of Islam as one of its defects is claimed here as an excellence. Islam has been accused of plagiarism, but it answers this charge by saying that it is not like a deaf man who cannot hear, and therefore is incapable of benefiting by the knowledge and experience of others, but like a person who is in perfect possession of the power of hearing, it listens to what others have to say, and thus supplements and perfects its own store of knowledge. This is why the Quran has not only collected in itself all such teachings of other divinely inspired religions as are fundamentally good and beneficial, but has also added to them such new truths as are not to be found in any other faith. The epithets hearing and deaf point to another contrast as well. In Islam, the door of divine revelation is open, and spiritually speaking, only such an ear can be said to be gifted with the faculty of hearing as listens to the voice of God. In fact, it is for the purpose of hearing the sweet voice of God that the ear has been primarily created. So the ear which does not hear the voice of God is a deaf ear. Similarly, it is to point to this great difference that believers and disbelievers have been respectively likened to the seeing and the blind. In Islam, the door of heavenly signs and miracles is ever open, and he alone can be truly said to be seeing who sees the fresh signs of God. The eye which refuses to see the signs of God is indeed a blind eye. So this is a contrast that has been drawn, right? So of course, it's in the spiritual realm, you could say, so those that are spiritually blind and deaf as compared to those who are spiritually seeing and spiritually hearing, right? And Allah states, are these two types of people alike? Is it that there's no difference between them? Those people that can see the signs of Allah, that can hear the revelation of Allah, that they're in communion with Him, and thereafter as well, just speaking about the faculties, common faculties that we have. A person that doesn't use their faculties, it's as if they don't have them, right? So can a person who is on the right path, that is using his faculties, he's trying to observe the universe, he's trying to find the right path, he's seeing and hearing also in the spiritual sense, is that person the same as a person who has abandoned their faculties, that is more just following the herd, so to speak, and they have no spiritual insight, right? So are these two people alike, right? They can never be alike, right? So will you not then understand? So what is superior? What type of person would we like to be, right? So here again, sometimes what happens is that the accusations that are made is that they say that, there's no difference. You can be this religion or that religion. You can be religious or not religious. As long as you adhere to certain principles, it's all the same. So here Allah states that's not true, right?
That's more or less what we covered last week. I had asked you that question. You said, well, who are you pleasing? The world or Allah?
Right. So it's there. And these days, there's a strong movement for people just to say that it doesn't matter if you're religious or not, right? As long as you're a good person, good person, whatever that may mean, right? So yeah, they say as long as
you got to define good.
What's good, right? So yeah, if it's completely divorced from any responsibility or obligation towards God, right? Then okay, then we can talk about just the human morality aspect of it. But even there's so much difference, right? So, it's a whole different sort of conversation. But here in this sense, the point that is being drawn is, look, if we're using all of our faculties, what's better, right? A person that can see and hear, right, in all the senses and ways that Allah has created him, or a person that abandons those faculties. Right? So if we have spiritual faculties, is it not better to use them, right, and to see and hear with them versus abandoning them, right, behind worldly greed? So I mean, this is the case that very simple analogy, right? But it bears a lot of different examples as well, like we've heard in the 5-volume commentary. So alhamdulillah, with this we have finished the second ruku. Yeah, so inshallah the next.
That's called again what? Ruku?
Ruku. So the R stands for ruku. Ruku, right? So each chapter is divided into a different number of rukus, right? So you remember the other division? So we have chapters and verses, and then each chapter is divided into a different, thematically, you could say. It's divided into different rukus. So even here, like the first verse, number 26, you'll see, and we sent Noah to his people. So now it's a new topic, right? So it's a whole different sort of
It's
conversation.
always
Now.
going to be like that?
Sorry?
It's always going to be like that?
Yeah.
Or
I mean, these divisions were made by scholars, you could say, right? But you know, it's pretty good. You know, if you read one ruku, you're getting kind of one topic or a theme, and then the next ruku will kind of be like a different aspect of it, right? So here, there's a marked difference between 25 and 26, right? So that's why it's a new ruku. And then there's the
Ruku means what?
ruku. I think I'll double check, but I think it means division, right? Then after that, we have the part system, right? So there's 30 parts in the Quran as well.
Yeah, that's usually comes in the app, right? Where it shows
Yeah.
30 parts. You could read the first part for that first one day.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So basically,
That's a lot of reading. I
yeah.
noticed this. So.
Well, Ramadan is coming up. Typically during Ramadan, we'll try to read one part per day at least.
Oh, that's what we're gonna do when we meet.
We're not going to be meeting every day though, right?
Ah, that's right.
Right. So it's just going to be, typically it's a personal reading, right? So every day, in order to finish the Quran in the month of Ramadan, which was the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, you have to read at least one part per day, right?
That's a lot.
Yeah. So I mean, that's why during Ramadan, the emphasis is always on reading the Quran,
It's
right?
fasting.
Yeah, fasting and reading the Quran.
Shouldn't
I mean,
be
it doesn't
working.
take. Well, yeah, I mean, but usually people will divide it into 2 or 3 sessions then.
That part one.
Yeah, so every part. So they'll be like, okay, in the morning I'll read like 15 minutes, so I'll read half a part,
Okay.
and then in the evening when I get back from work or something, I'll do the other half, right?
So they'll see how many chapters are in part one. They divided by 2.
No, they'll just look at part. Like it'll tell you when it's a new part, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying you're saying that the first day they'll divide. If it's, let's say it's 40 pages, part one.
Yeah.
You're saying that in the morning they'll do 15 minutes, which will probably be the first 20 pages.
Yeah.
And then the afternoon.
Yeah, so you could go by pages. There's also another way. It's done very precisely. Each part is divided into 4, right?
For that one day.
Every part in the Quran, right? It's called, right, a para. Para means one part, right? Every part also is subdivided into 4 parts. And there's also an indication in the Quran for that, right? So you could go by pages, but once you get to know those divisions, then you say, okay, I'll read up to nisf. Nisf means half. So you'll see it's written on the side as well, which means you've now reached half of this part.
Is that one?
No, that's ruku.
No.
Right.
Oh,
This is the sign for ruku, right?
Oh, okay.
Let me see if I can find the indication for nisf. All right, so that's a rub. This is a rub. That means 1/4. So you've now gone 1/4 of the part, right? And then there's another one. Yeah, there it is. A nisf. So when you reach that, that means you've gone halfway in the part. So this is part 12, right? You've reached halfway through the part.
Is that one right there?
That's a rub. That's 1/4,
Okay.
right? Rub means 1/4. Nisf means half, right? Then there's 3/4 as well. That's the next one. And then you'll see the new part.
I think the R is easier to follow.
The R is the easier one. That's the ruku system,
Yeah.
right?
Easier to follow.
And it's fine. Typically, I mean, also a person could just divide the entire Quran. Like, you want to go to the last page and be like, okay, there's 1,000. Well, in this one, there's like maybe like 18 something, right? Maybe 1900, and then you just divide it 1900 divided by 30, right? And you could read it that way, right? That's a little bit easier, I guess, if you don't know this system. But typically, yeah, one part per day is and initially, like in the first couple of days, where there's more energy and things like that, people will try to read more.
Yeah.
Right.
Try to get
Yeah. So they'll get ahead of it, you know. So then if they miss one day or they don't complete one part, then they're not behind,
That's
right?
permissible.
Yeah. I mean, there's no like hard and fast rule
Yeah.
that you can only do one part per day.
Yeah, because let's say
Right.
your day off, you got
Yeah, you-
first thing in the morning, you knock out day one.
Yeah.
Maybe need you knock out day two.
And
The
you know,
thing is, be consistent. The next day, just because you did
Yeah.
two, you say, I'm gonna take
Yeah,
a
I'm
break.
gonna take a
but then
break.
you're back to square one.
yeah. So that's the thing. Sometimes people will finish reading the Quran like 2 times or 3 times even in the month of Ramadan. People that dedicate a lot of time to doing it, right? Yeah, they're also fast readers, right? So it depends, but one of like a major part or aspect of Ramadan is the dedication to the Quran. The Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan, right? So there's
every time. For the,
no, it started to be revealed in the
Okay.
month of Ramadan, and then it continued, obviously, right after that and during all the months. But the revelation began in the month of Ramadan, right? And the Prophet ﷺ every Ramadan would
What does
review
Ramadan mean?
Ramadan. The promised Messiah ﷺ explained that what was it? If I'm not mistaken, it meant burning. You know, so what it means is that it burns the sins out from you. You know, right through the practice of fasting, right? So that's kind of the underlying meaning of it. But you know, it started to be revealed in the month of Ramadan, the Quran, and then every Ramadan, every year during the life of the Prophet ﷺ as a prophet, whatever was revealed up to that month was revised, right? So then every year there was more revision, and in the last year of his life, the entire Quran was revised twice in the month of Ramadan, demonstrating that the revelation had now been completed, right? So this is the sunnah that the Prophet ﷺ, the angel Gabriel would actually come and revise with him, which is what the ahadith state. So Muslims also across the world, they try to make the effort to finish one reading of the Quran at least, right, during the month of Ramadan. So it's good practice, and inshallah it'll come up also on Sunday, right, where we talk about some of these things, what we should try to do during the month of Ramadan and some of the rules related to it, right? But any questions for this or?